Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl, along with my partner, Brad Gatto.
Double howdy.
There we go. Changed it up a little bit. Like it. I was anxiously awaiting.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
Response is going.
I'm sure you are.
All right. So our topic for today is something that we have not done before, but I would like for it to become a regular occurrence, and it is sharing some of the lessons that we've learned. And today is going to cover a pretty wide range of time. So we figured I've been in this industry.
Lessons relative to the industry.
Yes.
Right. The whole concept of if I knew then what I know now.
Right. The 18 years I've been in this industry, and you 17 or work.
I'm in my 17th year right now. Yep. 2006.
So we're going to cover a pretty large span. So we're going to be here for about 3 hours. We're going to keep it tight. We're going to select a handful of different things. Just general.
Well, if you only have 3 fingers, a handful.
Right. Yes.
So 3 things. For today, we're going to do 3 things that we've learned along the way in our 17 and 18 years, respectively, in this industry, what we would do.
Yeah. Pinky and thumb are separate. So you do have 3 fingers. Before we jump into that, what is new with you?
I'm just ready for the weather to be good.
To be good. What's the definition of good?
Above 70.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got to be warm. I got to be warm. In the 60s, I still have my seat heater on in my car.
Really?
Yeah. Because that's just how I am. Yeah. So I'm ready for warmth. I'm also we've got a new employee starting here at Fiat soon. I'm excited about that. Always fun to bring new people into the team, new perspectives. It's always beneficial. And my wife and I have a couple trips coming up.
Nice. Just the 2 of you?
Yeah, they're both work related. But they're kind of they're work related in the sense that they're with some of our strategic partners. And I, not my wife, I have to be a part of meetings and stuff while we're there, but it's not like the whole trip. And so we get to kind of take advantage. And so one of them's in Seattle next month. And so my wife has never been to Seattle. So it's going to be a new experience for her. So that's always fun. And then actually we get across the pond this summer.
Nice.
And go to Switzerland. So
that's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been normal to do that.
I've never been to Switzerland. So I'm very excited to go check all that out. And again, I do have a couple of meetings that I have to attend while I'm there. But that one, 95% of the days time that we're there during the day is free. It's just a couple of meetings, but so we're going to take advantage of that. So a little bit of travel. That's what I got going on, man.
Yeah.
You?
I was waiting. I didn't know if you were going to prompt me or if I just So by the time this episode is aired, this will not be a surprise any longer. But it's my parents' 50th wedding anniversary this year.
Oh wow!
So
that's a big one.
It is. So I'm really excited about planning a surprise for them, which is going to.
Ooh, it falls on you, huh?
Trip. Yeah, I like travel. I like that kind of stuff. So
wait a minute. So what do you mean? So you're going to plan a trip for your whole family to go, or just for them?
No, for our whole family. So my family.
Do they want you guys to go?
Yeah, they're on their own all the time.
Okay.
So I do know it's something that they value is like getting everyone together, getting a photographer there. So I'm finalizing details of that right now, and I'm really excited to kind of tie a bow on it and figure out what we're gonna do. So
do you know actually where you're going to go yet, or we're going to take them?
We'll probably, I think we're going to end up either somewhere in Minnesota. We'll be on a lake somewhere in Minnesota or Western Wisconsin. There's a couple different places.
I am now going to move this episode up in the order so that it spoils.
Well, the truth has to see if they actually listen to all the podcast episodes. Right?
Yeah, there you go. I love that.
So it's a cool milestone. It's kind of blows my mind. Like we were doing the math and thinking about, oh my gosh, they got married very early. So
okay. Well, we should start it makes me think we should put Easter eggs like that in all of our episodes.
We should,
if certain people are listening.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Katie, I bought another boat.
Another boat?
I own a sailboat.
You still have that?
I do, yeah.
Have you used it?
No, long story there. Yeah, it's in storage, but I am I do have plans to get out
with
a few sailing lessons this year. So
okay.
step number.
How long ago did you buy that sailboat?
2019.
So 2019 and zero usage.
So 2020, COVID.
Well, people were still using boats. That's exactly what they were doing.
The yacht club was shut down. Where, long story, it's a long waiting list to get a mooring, and my first opportunity would have been last year, and I didn't make it happen. So,
I don't know what a mooring is.
It's like
sounds boring.
You don't launch a sailboat because
you missed my joke in there. Very dry.
It's very mooring.
Yeah, it rhymes. Okay, it rhymes. I don't actually. Okay, let's get into this just so that we can get through all three of these things. And so, looking back, so you got into the financial services industry, after doing some engineering work in 2005. I got in 2006 after doing some youth ministry work. And now we're going to kind of look back and reflect and say, okay, over the last 17 to 18 years, what have you learned, or what do you wish that you knew then that you know now, or what maybe would you have done differently? So Matt, you're up first. What's one thing that you might change, or that you're, at least at this point, I would say, happy that you've learned and are doing things different now?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing is, oftentimes when you tell someone you're a financial advisor, or I thought this as well, one of the first things that your mind goes to is the investment side of things, stocks, bonds.
Sometimes it's the only thing your mind goes to.
Well, yeah. And unfortunately that's kind of the case in some areas still, but that's where I was also guilty of this, of first assuming that was really what you did. And there's a quote that illustrates what I'm going to talk about almost perfectly. And it's Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Let's see if you can get it.
I know. I'm waiting. I thought you would jump in. Ready?
Yeah. No, you go first.
Okay. I wouldn't give a fig for complexity, simple on this side of complexity, but I'd give my something.
It depends on, there's actually a couple versions of the quote, and I don't know that we know exactly what he said, but I wouldn't give a fig for simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my life for simplicity on the other side.
Life. Holy cow.
Well, some people say my arm.
Yeah, I was going to say arm.
Right. Some people say it's my life.
That kind of, well, number one, that was a quote that way back in the early days of fiat, that was a quote that we kind of latch on to at the very beginning, number one. But from the investment side of things, I could actually kind of parlay this into all the different areas of financial advice, but I'm going to stick with the investment side of things. My experience has followed that quote almost verbatim as I look over that arc of time. So if I look from 2005 up to 2023, in the beginning, my understanding and my thought process around the role that investments played in financial planning was very simple, because I didn't know anything. Zero. Like, I didn't.
Simple because of ignorance.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And I didn't grow up being interested in stocks, or I didn't follow the stock market. I didn't have that background at all. So it was all so new that it was very simple.
So I'm curious. I'm gonna kind of derail you here just for a second.
I like
when you took the job in 2005. What did you think you were going to be doing? Like, what was the picture in your head of what it meant to be a financial advisor at the time? We were both at Ameriprise Financial.
Right. What hooked me in was the people part of it. So it was.
But what did you think you were going to be doing? Like, when you thought about your day to day and what your job was, what did that look like to you?
That I was going to do some marketing and bring some people in, and then everyone else is going to take care of everything else.
Oh man. I had no idea. No idea.
I think that was part of it too. Like, it was also completely foreign to me. Like, it's completely out there that I didn't understand it enough to even have a concept at all. So,
well, yeah, I remember calling Christy, my wife, and saying, "Hey," on my flip phone, and saying, "Hey, I got the job." And she's like, "That's awesome. So what do you do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." I I hadn't ever even watched a movie. Like some people are like the old movie Wall Street, or more recent, like The Wolf of Wall Street and movie. I hadn't even seen any of those movies.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what it meant. I didn't know if I was a stock picker, if I was selling pink sheets, like and dialing people.
Right.
I literally had no idea.
Same thing. And all I knew is that I was supposed to get in front of as many people as possible and have conversations with them. And that sounded pretty good.
What did you think your value proposition was once you got in front of those people?
I don't think that I even had that. I don't even, if you had asked me what that was back then, I probably would have looked at you with a blank stare.
Yeah, but if you're going to get in front of these people, what are you going to say to them? Like, what do you like? Okay, now you are in front of them.
Right.
Now what?
That's a good. Let me put myself back.
My mutual fund can beat up your mutual fund.
So, I don't think that I was even to that point. I think it was, hey, you're probably going to want my help because these things are kind of complex, because they seem really complex because I don't understand them yet either. And I think we get along. We hang out while we're hanging out. We're having a good time. So why not do this with me?
Do what?
Financial planning.
What's that?
Yeah. I think, well,
I'm putting you on the spot.
So
I know I am, but
I think with the timing of when we came into the industry. So we did come into a bigger firm that was pushing the financial planning side of things. Yeah. So I think it was actually really fortunate timing wise that it
was a 6-step process.
Yes. Nice. You remember all the steps?
The first one was a PMM.
Yep. Personal money management
meeting.
The next one was data gathering.
Yeah, it was data gathering.
Yeah. Implementation.
But that's all I remember selling is that, right? Because then the rest of the details came to your managers and people that knew somewhat what they were talking about. But the other thing that stands out to me, Matt, when you're talking about the investments, is I have this very vivid memory of working, because as a brand new advisor, we both got coaches, right? And so with my first advisor coach in my office, and I had a prospect, and we were building a quote unquote plan for this prospect. And these plans, you remember, we printed them out, and they were like, I don't know, 70 pages, 80 pages long. Yep. And then you had to go to the machine, punch all the little holes in it, and put the binder in it. Not like a 3-ring binder, like those spirals, those spiral things. And we had to like build this book for these people. And it was crazy. And you didn't even get a computer when you started. Like, we had to share a computer. My desk was literally just pens and pencils. Yep. But you would get these books. And I remember we used Morningstar to do some investment analysis. And all I remember being told what to do was, I wanted to get the portfolio, the aggregate risk return of the portfolio in the upper left-hand quadrant. Now, that may mean nothing to most of you, and but that's because it means nothing. Like, it doesn't actually solve a problem. But it doesn't mean nothing. But what it's referencing is that the portfolio is getting a better return with less risk than whatever benchmark you're comparing it to. So if you're in the upper left-hand quadrant, aggregately, better return, less risk than the benchmark. Now, usually what you were building wasn't anywhere near what the benchmark is anyway. So it was apples and kumquats, but like, that was my version of financial planning. Like, we were rock stars if I could just sit there and mess around with a different allocation of mutual funds and get them into the upper left-hand quadrant.
I wasn't there.
It was mind-blowing to me though. I was like, oh man, look how awesome this is. Like, I thought I was solving the world's problems.
I think that my sole purpose at that point was to get in front of as many people as I possibly could, and then again turn it over and let someone else take it over.
Which is when you think about what you just said and what I just said, you would think I was the engineer and you were the youth pastor.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'm sitting here nerding out on some of the numbers stuff, and you're like, I didn't care. I just wanted to get in front of more people, says the engineer.
Well, so let me take you over the arc. So in the beginning, I was told, just focus on what your job is, get as many people in here, build relationships. Okay, got it. I'll do everything I can. I'm going to be as creative as possible.
Sounds to me like you're a better manager than me.
Well, so fast forward, we left that big firm in 2009, went and started our own independent firm.
Yep.
In that time frame, if I look at this arc, suddenly I did start to get really interested in more of the technical side of things. A lot of that was just a lot of reading and learning and listening to different things. realizing that there's this entire world of options out there.
Yeah.
And so I went to the stage where, and I had a lot of these conversations with the people that we worked with on the investment side and just saying, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? What about this? What about this? And, some of it was really, really, really high level things that only the wealthiest people would have access to or to do. But my curiosity was piqued suddenly. And, that's where if I look at this simple, suddenly it became really complex.
Yep.
Where I was almost overwhelmed. And there were points where it was like, am I doing what's in the best interest of my clients if I'm not using all these different tools and strategies that are out there?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And as we are all accustomed to now, like there's now we all have access to unlimited information on anything we want at our fingertips. So you could spend all day, every day reading about all these different things and still not have an understanding. Right. So I went through that stage. And then I would say over the past 5 years, I landed back in a spot of simple.
But, and to get more context to that quote, because I think we've talked about that quote in this podcast before, in some of the early episodes. What he's saying is that, and what you're saying is that you landed in simplicity again, isn't that investments are simple. They are complex. It's being able to take something that is complex and make it simple. So that's why he's saying simplicity on this side of complexity is not really worth a lot. I wouldn't give a fig for that. That's simplicity because you're ignorant. Right. And then once that ignorance goes away, which you hit that, right? And you, as we started fiat, you're like, gosh, there's all these things I just didn't even know about. And so you start to do all this research. And then all of a sudden you just realize this world is like so big and so complex. So then you've hit that stage of complexity. And so to get back to simplicity, now you need to be able to take the thing that is complex and make it simple.
Right.
Not because you don't understand it, but because you do understand it. And you're able to take that complex thing and turn it back into something that people, the average person could understand, or you could understand and use in a meaningful way. Right. Redefined as wisdom.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The perfect example of that is actually taking one big step back rather than, I feel like people think, and maybe this is inaccurate, but they think they're going to come in and we're going to say, all right, you told me what you want to make happen. Here's your portfolio.
Yeah.
Whereas, is there's a lot of steps in between there. Right. So it's creating that structure of the buckets. We talk about buckets all the time.
Yeah.
But it's all right. How much money, if we're transitioning to retirement, how much money do we want to spend, and partitioning that into now, sooner or later money, and doing all of that work up front. And then at the end, the investment is like the cherry on the top, right? That's the last thing that gets plugged in there was, okay, this is what fits for this right now. Right.
We should just call it buckets financial.
We should. Yeah. Buckets.
That's what stuck in my head after you said that. Oh boy. We do use buckets a lot. Yeah, it's the investment deal is just I don't know. There are just so many things you can do. And we see a lot, right? We review a ton of people's overall allocations, investment portfolios and things like that. And you can just tell what some advisors are trying to do. And they're trying to kind of fancy things up,
right,
to make it look more complex, because then the prospective client or client perceives more value,
right,
because there's more buttons or there's more positions or there's things you've never heard of. When in reality, a lot of that stuff just ends up, all that fluff just ends up creating extra fat inside the portfolio. Right. And it's not that it never adds value, but just generally speaking, on the whole, it does not.
Right. If you don't get the overarching structure right, that stuff just doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. So the first thing that you wish you knew then that you know now is this arc of getting, you wish you had the complexity of understanding the investment world then, but then was able to take that complexity and turn it back into something simple that serves the family in a meaningful way without confusing them.
Yeah. I would have, if I could, I would have taken my curiosity and fascination from 2009 to 2012 and set it at the beginning of my career.
Fair enough.
Make sense?
It does make sense to me.
All right. What's next? How about you?
I think the first thing I would say is the structure of our industry. I mean, when I got in, not only did I not know what a financial advisor did, I just thought all advisors, once I realized what I did, I just assumed that my peers were all the same. Didn't matter who they worked for, what firm, what brokerage house, if they were independent or captive, and I didn't even understand those terms, frankly. I just thought everybody worked for a big company at first. But once I started to get a little bit of knowledge, I still thought on the whole, we're all the same. We're doing the same thing. And that from a value prop standpoint, at least at Ameriprise when we were there, and this isn't positive, negative, neutral towards Ameriprise, it just is a statement. Like our value prop was financial planning, right? That's what we were trying to sell, so to speak. In fact, we charged fees for the plan itself. Like you couldn't become a client of ours without paying just a flat fee before any money was ever brought under our advisement or products were sold or anything like that. You just had to write a check. And so that was kind of the product, so to speak, was this plan, this book, this spiral book that we had. But I didn't understand that some advisors, like I had to get a Series 7 license and a Series 66, just like you did. I just assumed every advisor had those licenses. We worked for a big firm. I thought all advisors worked for big firms. We sold financial plans. I thought all advisors sold financial plans. We were regulated by, well, back then it was called ERISA, but now it's called FINRA. I just thought all advisors were regulated that way and that their compliance all looked the same and that the investments they had access to all looked the same. And I just realized pretty quickly that that wasn't true. And then I had this period of time in my kind of story in this industry where I was wholesaling to advisors. I wasn't the actual advisor direct to the end client anymore. And it was interesting being, kind of looking down on the advisor industry and working with advisors instead of being one, how much more I learned about how different advisors are. They all use the same term. We're all financial advisors, but I think the best analogy I can use is the medical field. There's all kinds of different doctors. They're all doctors, right? But they have very different specialties. And just because you go to if you have cancer, you're not going to an ENT doc, and if you have a sore throat, you're not going to an oncologist, right? They're really, really good at a certain thing. And it makes a ton of sense when you think about it from a medical standpoint, because our bodies are so complex that having doctors that specialize in one area and just do that one thing super well makes a ton of sense, because you can't possibly have that level of knowledge about everything that could go wrong with the human body. I feel it's the same way in our world.
Absolutely.
Like, you cannot possibly know everything there is to know about all things financial. We just got a question this morning as an example about a mortgage that this particular family we work with is trying to take out, trying to buy a second home. And I mean, part of me wanted to be able to answer that question. The other part of me is like, that's not my specialty. Like, that's not what we do. I'm not that doctor. Right. But also how we were licensed and structured. And, we had these, you and I both had a Series 7 and 66 license. That was the securities exams that we had to take to get into the industry. Well, there's all these other licenses, which makes sense when you really stop and think about it, because you don't go from 7 to 66. There's probably a bunch of tests in between there and different licenses. Right. Why would one be called a 7 and one be called a 66 if there wasn't also like a 6 and a 65 and a whatever? So there are all these other exams, but they all mean something different, and they all allow advisors to do something different. I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that you could do business through a broker dealer, that you could do business through a registered investment advisory firm, and that if you didn't own those firms, that you were called a registered rep of a broker dealer, or that if you didn't own the RIA, you were considered an IAR, an investment advisor representative of the RIA. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff. And I don't expect, I purposely went through that quickly to kind of try to confuse people because it's ridiculous.
Right.
But what the end consumer doesn't know or understand is what that means to them. And I didn't even understand as an advisor what it meant to me. So in short, to answer your question, what I wish I knew then that I know now is all the nuances of the industry and how you could structure yourself to do business, how you could license yourself to work with your clients or the families that you serve. Because right now, as an example, at the end of this rainbow is Fiat is currently our own RIA. We are our own registered investment advisory firm. That just happened last year. So I was 16 years into this industry. You were 17 years. Fiat was founded after we left the big box firm in 2009. So Fiat was in its 13th year when we became our own registered investment advisory firm. If I knew then what I know now, it wouldn't have taken, 4 years to form Fiat. Fiat would have been formed prior to that, and it would have become its own RIA prior to last year. Because the way that we're set up and structured now, in my belief, doesn't make me right. I'm sure most of this is opinion. I think we're best set up now to serve the families that we want to serve in the way that we want to serve them. And so, yeah, I wish I would have known that. And frankly, I also wish that the average consumer knew more about the nuance of our industry.
Well, that's what's kind of mind blowing. I mean, I'll still talk to other people in this industry that do not understand
all the time.
And if that's the case, like we have all these biases, right?
Yeah.
And that bias of assuming that everyone else is familiar with what we're familiar with. Well, if a lot of us in this industry don't even understand it, we have to remember that how confusing that is to other people. I don't, when you put yourself in those people's shoes, this may be the first time they're meeting someone. Like, to us, it seems like a silly question to say, how are you different from Bernie Madoff? Like, because it's like, well, there's 1,000 different, steps between that and how we're structured, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't understand it. So, that empathy piece is huge.
Yeah. Anecdotally, I was just talking to one of the advisors in our firm this morning, and he was talking to me about a prospective family that he was onboarding, and that prospective family was coming from a big box firm, and rightfully so. The advisor at the big box firm, of course, didn't want to lose the client, and so was attempting to save the business, as I would do the same thing. I don't fault them for that. But one of the things that they said in their attempt to get this client to stay and not come to Fiat was, well, we do the same thing. We're both financial advisors. Why would you want to make a change? And there is just this is not, let me be very clear. This does not mean Fiat's better than that person or that person's better than Fiat. That's an opinion. What's not is that we do the same thing.
Right.
It's just not true. We're both financial advisors. Is there some overlap? Sure. Absolutely. But we absolutely don't do the same thing. And that's just so hard for consumers to understand and to know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, I think that we could riff on this for probably a good 3 hours. How about we do this? How about we put a pin in it now, and we continue to make this a recurring thing where we review.
Put a pin in it. That's like a nightly news segment. They always say that, and they always say, we're just going to leave that there. And then they move on to the next thing. You ever notice that?
I've not.
We're just going to leave that there.
I am going to notice that now.
I always, and it bothers me. And every time I think, where are you leaving it? Like, well, what do you mean you're leaving that there?
Let's come up with a name. The parking lot. We're going to put.
You're going to put in the parking lot?
Put that in the parking lot. I think it's a good idea that we do this on a consistent basis, just to talk about. I think we have a lot more lessons to share with 17 and 18 years, and we'll continue to.
I got at least one more.
So,
that sounds like a good idea. It's kind of a fun topic for us. And the education along the way is just so important. And one of the things, and I'll end by saying this, Matt, one of the things I try to tell new families that I get to interact with, and I don't these days, I don't get to interact with every new family that onboards with Fiat in a direct sense anymore. But the ones that I do, I kind of joke around with them, but my tongue is definitely firmly planted in my cheek. Like, if you don't like change, then don't come here. Mm-hmm. Because these lessons and this education that we've gotten over the years is only valuable if we take that education, those lessons, and do something with it, right. Which means inevitably things are going to change. And so I don't look at change as necessarily a bad thing, especially in an industry. We work in an industry that tends to be traditional, tends to be, this is the way we've always done it, tends to be older, just from an age perspective, and the average advisor. And we're not we kind of push against all of those things, and we're constantly looking for ways to be better. We're constantly looking for ways to serve families in a more meaningful way. And that just means that there's a lot of change. And so these lessons that we learn along the way that we'll bring to you are the things that are driving a lot of the decisions and the changes that we're making here at Fiat. And we will continue to make. That is my only promise as the CEO of this company, is that change will be the only consistent thing that we have. But only because it's an effort to constantly be the best version that we can be for the families that we work with. So
love it.
That said, thanks for joining us for this episode of Every Day is Saturday. Hopefully that was a fun one for me, but I have no idea if it was fun for you. So I hope that it was, but you should just tell us. If you're listening to these episodes, please reach out to us and let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you're finding interesting, what you're not finding interesting. We would love to get some feedback from y'all about some of these topics. And if you have anything that you want us to talk about, let us know about that. We would love to take some suggestions from some of our listeners of topics they would like to have us cover or things you'd like for us to talk about. So just let us know. hello@fiatwm.com is the general email inbox that you can email. hello@fiatwm.com. You can find more information about us and our firm at our website, which is just fiatwm.com. There's a bunch of free resources there for you too. Obviously, we've got this podcast. We're putting blogs out constantly. We do educational workshops over Zoom that are free to attend. We're just trying the best that we can to provide as much education as we can and make a meaningful impact to the people that come across our firm, even if you're not a family that we work with directly. So again, thanks for joining us. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to share. Do what you got to do. But between now and the next episode, we'll see all of you next Saturday.